If I told you that modern banking was invented by a family of wool merchants who used God, gold, and genius accounting tricks to control Europe and then lost everything in less than a century, you'd probably think that sounds like a Netflix show. But it's real. This is the story of the Medici Bank, the family that basically invented banking as we know it, financed popes and kings, and then watched their empire collapse under the weight of their own power. We start in Florence, around the late 1300s. Florence is rich, but fragile. It's a city of guilds, merchants, and powerful families, constantly fighting for control. One of those families is the Medici. At first, they're not the top dogs. They're in the wool trade, respectable, but not legendary. The turning point comes with Giovanni de' Bici de' Medici. Giovanni is not a flashy warlord. He's a cautious, patient, numbers-obsessed businessman. In 1397, he founds the Medici Bank. No one knows it yet, but this small bank is about to rewire European finance. Giovanni's first big move is simple but brilliant. He focuses on trust. Medieval Italy is full of shady lenders, unstable city-states, and constant wars. People need a place where their money is safe. Giovanni builds that. He keeps conservative reserves. He avoids wild speculation. He treats clients well. And he builds a reputation for something rare in that era: reliability. But good branding is not enough. The Medici also innovate technically. They use and spread double-entry bookkeeping, a method that records every transaction twice, as a debit and a credit. That sounds boring, but it is a financial nuclear weapon. It lets them track complex webs of loans, currency exchanges, and partnerships with a precision that competitors simply don't have. Then comes their second big innovation, the branch network. Instead of just one bank in Florence, the Medici start opening branches strategically across Europe: Rome, Venice, Geneva, Bruges, London, Milan, Lyon. Each branch is not just a copy-paste office. It is a semi-independent partnership, managed by local partners who share in the profits, but ultimately answer to the Medici in Florence. This gives them three huge advantages. First, they can move money across borders without physically moving gold. A merchant in London can deposit with the Medici there and receive payment in Florence or Bruges through letters of credit. Second, they can arbitrage currency differences and profit from exchange rates. Third, they can serve the most important customer of all, the Catholic Church. This is the real power-up. In Rome, the Medici become bankers to the papacy. Think of the Pope as the CEO of the largest, richest, most tax-collecting organization in Europe. Tithes and church taxes flow in from England, France, Germany, Spain. Someone has to collect this money, convert it, move it, and keep track of it. The Medici, with their branches and bookkeeping, are perfectly positioned. Being the Pope's bank is insanely profitable. It also makes you politically untouchable. Under Giovanni's son, Cosimo de' Medici, the bank hits its golden age. Cosimo is not just a banker. He's effectively the shadow ruler of Florence. He uses the bank's profits to fund art, architecture, and alliances. He finances cathedrals, supports artists like Donatello and early Renaissance masters, and quietly buys political loyalty by controlling who gets credit. Here's the key. Banking for the Medici is not just about money. It is about power. If Cosimo supports your business, your political campaign, or your building project, you rise. If he cuts you off, you fall. Credit becomes a weapon. By the mid-1400s, the Medici Bank is the dominant financial institution in Europe. Their model looks familiar today. Diversified branches, cross-border transfers, letters of credit that act like early checks, and close ties to central power. They helped invent what we now take for granted as normal banking. But every empire has a flaw built into it. For the Medici, that flaw is concentration of risk and the illusion that their political power makes them invincible. After Cosimo dies in 1464, his son Piero takes over. Piero is sickly and cautious. He lacks his father's charisma and deep understanding of the business. The bank is still huge, but cracks are forming. Some branches have been making risky loans to nobles and rulers who see repaying debt as optional. Two of the worst clients in Medici history are Edward IV of England and Charles the Bold of Burgundy. Both take massive loans. Both are dangerous, unstable political bets. The Medici are violating their founder Giovanni's rule. Avoid lending too much to princes, because you can't easily seize a king's assets when he doesn't pay. When Lorenzo de' Medici, known as Lorenzo the Magnificent, inherits the family's power, he is a cultural supernova. He's a poet, a patron of Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, and a political mastermind. Under him, the Medici Bank becomes less of a disciplined financial machine and more of a piggy bank for political projects, wars, and patronage. Some branches, like the London and Bruges offices, are already in trouble. But because the Medici name is so powerful, local managers keep the doors open and hide losses, hoping things will turn around. Then, in 1478, disaster hits from a different direction: the Pazzi conspiracy. The Pazzi are a rival Florentine family, allied with others who hate Medici dominance. During High Mass in the Florence Cathedral, they attempt to assassinate Lorenzo and his brother Giuliano. Giuliano is murdered. Lorenzo survives. The coup fails. Lorenzo responds with brutal repression, executing conspirators and their allies. This would normally be the end of the story, but there is a financial twist. The conspiracy was quietly backed by Pope Sixtus IV and his banking allies, who were angry that the Medici had blocked certain papal deals and loans. When the plot fails and Lorenzo retaliates, relations with the Pope collapse. And remember, the Pope is the Medici's single most important client. Pope Sixtus IV punishes them where it hurts. He removes the papal accounts from the Medici and gives them to rival banks. Overnight, the bank loses one of its biggest, steadiest sources of income and prestige. The Roman branch, once the engine of their profits, goes into decline. This is like a modern megabank losing its central bank and government contracts. Combined with the already failing northern branches, the Medici Bank is now bleeding from several wounds at once. In the 1480s, the bank tries to adjust. Some branches are closed. Others are reorganized. But Lorenzo keeps using what remains of the bank to support his political lifestyle and foreign policy. Instead of cleaning up the balance sheet, they keep piling on risk. They lend to rulers who promise political favors instead of cash flows. They extend credit to keep allies loyal. They assume the Medici name and Florence's importance will shield them from real collapse. They are wrong. By the early 1490s, pressure on Florence is growing. France is looking south. Italian states are scheming. And inside Florence, a new voice rises: Girolamo Savonarola, a fiery Dominican friar. He attacks the corruption, luxury, and worldliness of the Medici, calling them morally and spiritually bankrupt. He also attacks the kind of financial manipulation and decadence that the Medici system represents. In 1494, Charles VIII of France invades Italy. The political situation explodes. Lorenzo has already died by this point. His son, Piero the Unfortunate, is no Lorenzo. He fails to manage the crisis. The French advance. The Florentines turn on the Medici. The family is exiled. Their property is seized. And with the family's political power gone, the bank has no shield left. The remaining branches are wound down, their assets sold off to pay creditors, or simply taken. Bad loans are written off. Partners who were once proud to be associated with the Medici quietly distance themselves. In less than 100 years, the Medici go from inventing modern banking to seeing their flagship institution effectively disappear. The family later claws its way back to political relevance. They will even produce popes and a queen of France. But the original Medici Bank, the financial engine that built their first empire, is gone. So what actually killed the Medici Bank? It wasn't one single event. It was a combination of structural and human failures. First, concentration of risk. Too much exposure to a few powerful but unreliable clients, like kings and popes. Second, mission drift, moving from cautious, diversified banking into politically motivated lending and vanity projects. Third, weak succession. Later generations who loved power, art, and prestige more than the unglamorous discipline of risk management. And finally, political shocks. The Pazzi conspiracy, papal revenge, and the French invasion that wiped out their political cover. Why does this medieval story matter to us now? Because the basic pattern keeps repeating. A financial institution innovates, grows huge by solving a real problem, becomes politically powerful, starts believing its own myth, and then slowly replaces discipline with arrogance. It takes on risk that the founders would have run from. It tells itself that size and connections will always provide a bailout. And then, one or two bad bets, one political turn, one crisis, and the whole structure comes down. The Medici Bank shows us that modern banking did not start as a neutral, clean mathematical system. It started as a messy mix of family ambition, religious money, political manipulation, clever accounting, and fragile trust. The next time you walk past a sleek modern bank branch or send money instantly across borders, remember, 500 years ago, a Florentine family was doing a rough version of the same thing with parchment, quills, and ledgers. They built something so powerful that we are still living inside the system they helped create. But they also proved a darker rule of finance. Even the families that invent the game are not guaranteed to keep their seat at the table. Sometimes the very tools that make you rich credit, leverage, political access are the same ones that, misused, ensure you lose everything. Subscribe to this channel as we unveil more financial mysteries around the world.